to the distinguished representative of Syrian Arab Republic.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. بداية
Thank you, President. At the outset, my delegation wishes to convey its condolences to the Islamic Republic of Iran for the painful incident this morning. We express our solidarity to the family of the victims, and we wish for a swift recovery for those who are injured. President, the delegation of my country has heard the clarifications provided by the Russian Federation and China. The clarifications regarding their just opposition to the resolution calling for increased sanctions against the DPRK. We wish to share the following remarks. First, my country joined the consensus on General Assembly Resolution 76/262. However, we are concerned with regard to the exploitation of this resolution by certain actors in a political way. We don't share which does not serve the reason why the resolution was adopted. The Security Council needs to play a positive and constructive role in order to settle differences in a peaceful manner and to ensure that these measures help to ease tensions and resolve the situation in accordance with the fundamental mandate of the Security Council, which is the maintenance of international peace and security. Yet today, we're seeing political polarization by certain states in the Security Council. There are attempts to isolate certain member states and to neglect their obligations, moving the Security Council away from its balance and objectivity. This serves to deepen the divides at the Security Council, restricting its capacity, the capacity of the Council, to mount a collective response and to support efforts to arrive at a peaceful settlement. This prolongs and exacerbates the crisis. These countries have seen their concerns ignored, and ladies and gentlemen, despite the fact that the provisions of Article 41 and 42 of the Charter allow the Security Council to take measures to preserve international peace and security, the use of these articles needs to be a tool rather than an end in itself. The facts and the effective implementation of these sanctions by the Security Council against a number of member states shows that the biggest losers are the people of those countries. And the vital sectors in the development of those countries are affected by such sanctions, affecting human rights, fundamental human rights. And despite the failure of these sanctions, and despite the need to reform them, the Security Council has not been successful in the majority of cases in avoiding the effects, or it hasn't succeeded in mitigating them either. Since 2006, the Security Council has adopted 10 resolutions, sanctions resolutions against North Korea. And yet, the reality has shown that these sanctions, which are imposed against this member state, have not taken into account the root causes, and they've contributed to a degradation in the situation and the stability in the Korean Peninsula, and have not established security. These sanctions against North Korea have had a humanitarian impact that is unacceptable. They have directly threatened the citizens of North Korea. Therefore, it's inhumane to add on to those sanctions given the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is currently underway in the DPRK. Despite a series of measures taken by North Korea since 2018 to calm the situation on the Korean Peninsula, the United States have moved farther away from dialogue and diplomacy. The hesitant policy of the U.S. and the lack of reciprocity, given the positive steps taken by North Korea, in addition to the imposition of what are called independent secondary measures, which move beyond the sanctions imposed by the Security Council, all of these elements have hampered dialogue, and they have deepened the lack of confidence, the lack of trust of the U.S.'s desire to move toward a permanent settlement of the crisis. President, the United States and their allies have used, in recent decades, the right to veto. They've done so dozens of times, and unjustly, against the people in our region, especially as regards the Palestinian people. They've impeded a peaceful settlement to dozens of international crises. The United States must respect Security Council resolutions in order to bolster their credibility vis-a-vis the international community. It is the United States that need to find their commitment to Security Council resolutions, and rather than impeding those resolutions since the creation of the United Nations up until today. Finally, my delegation reiterates the need to respect the purposes and principles of the Charter, to support true plurality, which is grounded in international law provisions, including through the implementation of measures taken by the Security Council in a balanced fashion, which are not merely an end in themselves. Failing to respond to the repeated calls of Pyongyang to put an end to hostile activities against Pyongyang, and to ensure its right to protect its own people and the sovereignty of its people and its territorial integrity, the lack of respect for promises given. This should not stop the all of these elements, including humanitarian failures. All of this mean that additional sanctions are unacceptable morally and politically, and they show that those states that oppose these sanctions have the right position. I thank you.
Of the Syrian Arab Republic.